We are here at the end of the year, and while it would normally be appropriate to do a best of what we saw, my top fives as I've done in the past, with everything that has happened with American soccer and proof now that whether it's MLS or the US men's national team, it's a year-round sport, baby. We are talking about it from January 1 to the very last day of the year, and certainly here in 2023. So with all that in mind, I'm going to put a hold onto all of that. Still might get some videos out here by year's end to have my opus, something that I've been looking forward to doing, where I give you everything I know about the state of American soccer. This is where tuning into the Soccer OG pays off, because I've seen it, I've done it, I've heard it, and the landscape is changing very quickly. In many cases, it's changing too quickly. We have to stop and take a look. And I'm not going to sit here and lecture you. I'm going to give you information and my thoughts. I'm going to leave some openings for some possibilities that I think most of us would agree on with regards to Major League Soccer, the US Open Cup, and all the things that we have been arguing about in recent days. It feels like we are very splintered in the way we approach the game. And again, I want to have an open conversation, even though I'm doing all the talking. You can certainly leave a comment here. You can reach out to me on my social media handles. But here it is, the state of the game, according to the Soccer OG. Check out the Soccer OG podcast, where all podcasts are available. We have a great one out there right now with Brett Oppenheim. You can also see the excerpt of that interview here on my YouTube page under my name, Max Bretos. Like and subscribe us here. We appreciate the support. We've had an incredible 2023 and 2024 without too much hubris. We know it's going to be huge because we have the Copa America, we have the Nations League, and we have this sport developing before our very eyes. So let's get serious here, right? Let's roll up our sleeves, figuratively, because I got to do some shopping later, and I don't want to have to iron my shirt. I'm going to preface this by saying, as a fan of Major League Soccer, and this is all based on really the reaction, Don Garber of Major League Soccer coming out saying there's really not going to be any new alterations to the roster or the salary cap. And then a couple days later coming out and saying that MLS is going to put their MLS Next Pro teams in the US Open Cup. Obviously, we all know now that US Soccer has responded, and it would appear, although I haven't really fleshed it all out, because I don't want to dwell on that too much because I think it's a fluid situation, that MLS first teams will play in the US Open Cup, to the delight of many. And, there was so much outrage, first for the first set of information, because everyone was anticipating with Lionel Messi here that MLS was, and one of their favorite expressions, I don't want to be patronizing, I apologize, that many have said, take the training wheels off. It drives me a little crazy because I keep seeing the same expressions, and I encourage everyone, it's an open forum. You can say whatever you want. Don't repeat talking points. We're all smart here, and we can calibrate how we want the sport to our liking. We don't have to repeat what others say, even though I do that sometimes too. But I'm just saying that. But let's watch the expressions. Anyway, again, no lecturing. I will preface this because I work for MLS, I work for LAFC, and that is part of why I want to share with what things I've seen, because I think there's some misunderstandings about how soccer is consumed and viewed. So I will preface this for the third time saying, as a fan of MLS, I would love to see an expansion of the salary cap. I would love to see it. I would love to see, hey, it's what, $5 million a year plus the DPs. Let's up it to 6 or 7. Not massive growth, because more money, more problems. And I think that's what people are waiting for. I would love to see that. I would love to see MLS teams in the US Open Cup. First thing I ever called was US Open Cup games. It is very near and dear to me. And when I see people dangle it around as bait, I get it's very personal. Because the US Open Cup, I can remember, this was where I started broadcasting. I remember games. I remember games going back to the late 90s. That's how much it means to me. So, I don't want to shortchange the US Open Cup, but I would like to see MLS involved. As many of you have, I fell in love with cup competition, promotion, relegation, which would be the third point with this. And this may surprise you. I think MLS is so massive with 32 teams, and it's not going to happen. But maybe if you can, and they're not going to bring USL teams, so we're not going to go pie in the sky here. But maybe with 30 teams, they would have 2 divisions of 15. When a team drops to the MLS second division, and then maybe you can even start a third division one day, then you give clubs incentives. You incentivize winning the second division. So say you're the Houston Dynamo, you get relegated to MLS second division, then there's enough money and enough chance to qualify for competitions that you don't get forgotten. Yeah, I mean, again, this is a very delicate situation, but that's something I think would benefit MLS one day, just to think of having a really strong 15-team or 20-team first division and a very hungry 15-team second division. So, I mean, those are things I would like to see. But I'm very realistic here because, you know, when I see everyone talking about how MLS should help the sport of soccer, again, something I agree with. And it's romantic and it sounds great, but is it something that can be done beyond just playing in the US Open Cup to help the development and have an open, it's all part of an open system. MLS, yes, it's a closed system, and it's worked for MLS over the years. An open system, the pyramid, promotion, relegation, cup competitions, like we see in England. The reaction from Don Garber, it was at times insincere because as it applies to the US Open Cup, there's never been much support until this past weekend where it seemed like everybody was a huge proponent of the Open Cup. And I know that that's not the case because I watch games every year and you don't see that. MLS is a business, and for what I'm hearing, there is this demand for MLS to help all soccer. How do we view that? You know, I heard Jimmy Conrad say that there has to be inclusive with the US Open Cup. And then he said something was interesting, that MLS should be different than other American sports. So there you have it. The NFL doesn't help the other tiers of American football. The NBA, to some small tiny degrees, doesn't help the lower tiers, college basketball, high school basketball. In some ways they do, but there's not, you know, it's not part of this connected pyramid. Baseball has minor leagues. I guess there's some parallels there. It's just MLS is being asked to help soccer more than any other American sport. And that in itself is difficult because MLS in many ways is the least solvent of those sports. There has been Sebi Salazar. I'm just using some examples, and he was very hot and used his platform to say that MLS, if they don't play in US Open Cup, should lose their Division I status. So I ask myself, and I ask you, and I ask Sebi, who takes that place? Who takes the place at the top? Is it USL? Or is there no one at all on the top? I mean, these are seismic suggestions being made. Seaton O'Connor on the Dan Patrick Show. I love Seaton, and he used a huge platform. He got Dan Patrick to sign off on it, and he said it basically is taking the heart out of the game here by doing this. He also said that USL has been getting closer to competing with MLS in the Open Cup, and I don't know if that's completely accurate. Haven't won an Open Cup, the lower division, since 1999. And they did have the Sacramento Republic make the final a couple years back. He mentioned the Pittsburgh Riverhounds beating the Columbus Crew, but they didn't win it. To me, it feels further away. Not that that should take away from lower divisions playing in it. And that's USL. Other lower divisions, to compare that to Division 3 or Division 4 in England, is those clubs aren't getting close to the finish line. But when they pull an upset, we get excited. But who's we? It's a handful of people. It doesn't resonate. And that's why I'm not crazy about the comparison to the English game, because the FA Cup is a cup for supporters. It's been built by supporters. It's embedded in that culture. And I think it could work here and it could be built. But how long will that take? How long would it take to build the game over the years so that the supporters have a big say and we have a cup competition that really functions? 20 years, 30 years, 40 years? Would soccer be around by then if we could be that patient? I can't say. I can tell you it'd be very risky, especially for MLS, who has everything to lose. They have all the stakes, no guarantees. MLS is a business, and they have done, some of the people criticize it, saying take the training wheels off. I think they've taken the training wheels off quite a time ago. 29 teams, the buy-in is what, like $500 million for a new club, 22, 23 new stadiums. Lionel Messi's here, wealthy investors. There used to be 3 or 4 in the league, and now you have dozens. So the product is good. Could it be better? Yes. Oh, a relationship with Liga MX. I mean, that didn't exist. And this is another thing. People are comparing the Leagues Cup, the Open Cup. Everyone's like, the Open Cup, I understand the history of the Open Cup, but the Leagues Cup is singular, unique. And you've got the big brands from Liga MX playing here. You can undercut it, but the bottom line, if you have a final next year between Columbus Crew or Inter Miami and America or Chivas, that's going to be one of the biggest games ever played in the United States. And it could happen. It could happen. So to put those two against it, and just to make it clear, and I know it's very difficult to absorb all of this, MLS is looking after itself. It's created the Leagues Cup, and they need to take some games off their plate. That's what they want to do. They want to develop young players as well. That's what they've said about the MLS Next Pro teams playing in the US Open Cup. So they viewed this as some relief. It would have been minor relief. And again, looking back, the best decision probably was just leave it, let the clubs determine how they approach the US Open Cup. So we're getting into this a lot, and I hope to get all these points in. I work for LAFC. Part of what I do for the club are explainer videos, because in this past year where LAFC was playing MLS, CONCACAF Champions League or Cup now, US Open Cup, Campeones Cup, when I talk to, and I'm going to put the number at like 70% of our supporters, they don't know the difference. They don't. These are new fans to the game. They like to come to the game on the weekend, and they probably don't want to think about, hey, Wednesday, why are we playing the Tampa Bay Rowdies? What is that all about? I would make videos to explain it because they, quite frankly, didn't know or didn't care. They like coming to the stadium, watching the team play, win or lose, part of the season, which is the American system. That is a large majority of the MLS fans. You're not serving them better by putting more games on. You have to educate them, and maybe they will fall in love the way we all did. But as it stands, that number is very, very high. They get their they get their fix on the day-to-day, the weekly one of the weekly game, and that is fantastic. So I'm going to skip through a couple items here because I don't want to take too much time. I hope this is helpful. I wrote it down, and I thought it could certainly get there here with helping you. You always have to have a sophisticated base, but helping you kind of see what is going on. I want to mention this about the growth of soccer. Because if the growth of soccer was there, maybe MLS could help everyone, or USL, or hand things out. And people saw this incredible contract that was the relationship with Apple TV, $2.5 billion over 10 years. Amazing. So MLS went from a broadcast deal of $90 million a year to $250 million a year. Soccer rights fees have gone through the roof. La Liga was $1.4 billion through 28-29. Serie A, 3-year deal, $75 million per, which is good. That's a huge bump from the past. Bundesliga, great deal from the Bundesliga, $30 million per. 25, 26, and then 2.5 billion for the Premier League. And then you also have the Champions League, which is a little harder to decipher because the UEFA controls so much of the Champions League. It's not a great partner to have if you're CBS, in the sense that you can't really sell ad sales, which you have more control of. MLS deal, in comparison to all of those, is the best one because it's global, streaming everywhere. It's one big broadcast deal. If you're MLS, you would love to think that you could sell your rights into Europe and Asia and get some extra coin. But that's why they're perfect for this Apple TV deal, because you're not going to get a big payoff from that. I want to mention all those broadcast fees because that is not sustainable. We are growing as American soccer. It's good. It's not great. It's not worth those price tags at all. And what we're also seeing, some of the streaming services, I see, CNBC every morning, and they're talking about Paramount merging with Warner Brothers, and one of the guys said Paramount should stop streaming. Paramount streams a lot of soccer. They have the Serie A, and they're already talking about, we don't want to re-sign it at that price tag. I can assure you ESPN is not going to offer, and this is a long ways away, the La Liga $1.4 billion the next time around. And the Premier League's price tag probably coming down because even though that is the success story, they just talked about Liverpool, Manchester United being their second best viewership of all time. It was like 2.2 million viewers. Amazing. But does that equate that price tag when the majority of games nobody cares, really? It's a small, minuscule amount. No one's watching La Liga on ESPN Plus. It's a small, minuscule amount. It's a nice amount. But you have to remind yourself, we're very small when we watch soccer. You know, I heard people say maybe Apple kicks MLS to the curb. Maybe. They need subscribers. They need all of these providers are stretching to hit whatever targets they want to. And the sports bubble certainly feels like it could burst. And not just soccer, but all sports, which are extremely overvalued. You have to keep up with the Joneses, but we have all these services that want sports because live sports is king. But what if that starts to shrink or pops? I think it will shrink, obviously. So MLS has the broadcast deal, and when people think $250 million a year, we'll spread the wealth. They have 29, they're going to have 30 teams soon. MLS does the productions for this. You had to take away the local broadcast. There's no local broadcast, so teams can't make that money with ad sales in their local broadcasts. You have money from the new ownership. There's not going to be many more new clubs, so that's going to slow down. MLS has to take care of itself. It would be insane for them to start propping up other leagues. I know Alexi Lalas mentioned, why don't they just buy USL? It sounds great. You could do Pro Rel, but you've got to be thrifty here. I think there's this impression that money's just pouring out of MLS's pockets. It's not the case. There's a lot of mouths to feed. So I think that's important to know here, that soccer, you see these big numbers, but keep in mind, a lot of these places are on streaming companies that aren't making money, and MLS is not making money because they're hoping to make money in the future. But they have put something really good together. And I think that is MLS's prerogative, what they want to do with it. So it is, it's complex. But I wanted to share a few things and see, MLS, for all of it's done, if you're going to sit there and MLS has failed soccer in this country, you're not watching. This league, while there's always room for improvement, the teams should be performing better in international competitions. It has been pretty remarkable what they've been able to do. Should we help the US Open Cup and it should be bigger than it is? Yes, but it's not. And I think that's an important delineation. Yes, we love the US Open Cup, but let's not act like this was something that was part of everyone's daily routine or weekly routine. It was not. But let's discuss it. How can we make it work? We all have to roll up our sleeves, a long way to go, and a relatively short time to get there. And don't make 2026 feel like that's the end. Let's look beyond. We're in this together. This is our sport. We got to take care of it. Take care of it. If you're in North America, you should have a stake in Major League Soccer. The Soccer OG. Check out the Soccer OG podcast where all podcasts are available. Have a great holiday season, everybody.